Do you know someone who apologizes for everything? Big things, small things, things that literally had nothing to do with them. Sorry for texting. Sorry for bothering you. Sorry for asking. Sorry for existing in your general direction. And if you know someone like this, or if you do this without even noticing, today you're going to understand why your mind learned this behavior. Because people usually say things like, she's cold, he never shows emotion. But honestly, those are often the people who feel the most. They were just trained to hide it so well that eventually even they started believing their own emotional mask. And if you're like this, that's okay. Because emotional silence is rarely personality. Usually it's survival training. If your mind learned to suffer quietly, it's because at some point that felt safer. Your brain wasn't trying to hurt you, it was trying to protect you. The problem is that the brain keeps repeating old emotional survival patterns, even when you no longer need them. So today we're going to talk about the 8 hidden signs, disguised as normal behaviors, that reveal something much deeper happening in your subconscious. And pay close attention, because each sign seems small on its own, but together they form a very specific psychological pattern. And by the end of this video, I'll reveal exactly what that pattern is. This behavior usually doesn't appear out of nowhere. There are many possible origins for it. Some people were criticized whenever they cried. Others grew up hearing things like, "You're overreacting. Stop being dramatic. It's not that serious." Some grew up in emotionally unpredictable environments where you never knew what version of someone you were going to get that day. So the brain became hyper alert all the time. Some had emotionally distant parents. Others experienced bullying. Some were punished for vulnerability. And many simply learned one silent rule very early in life: emotions create problems. So eventually the brain adapts. It starts thinking, okay, if expressing emotions causes conflict, then hiding emotions must be safer. And that adaptation can look incredibly normal from the outside. Sometimes it looks like maturity, independence, being easygoing. Meanwhile, internally, the person is emotionally buffering, like a frozen Netflix screen from 2014. And this is exactly why the next 8 signs are so hard to notice, because most of them are socially normalized behaviors. But underneath them, there's often an entire emotional survival system running quietly in the background. Sign 1. They type long emotional messages and then delete all of it. You open your phone, type a huge paragraph explaining exactly how you feel. You reread it, edit a sentence, delete a word, add context. Try not to sound dramatic. Try not to sound needy. Try to sound emotionally stable enough to remain accepted by society. And then in the end, lol, never mind, delete. Gone. The behavior seems small, but mentally, there's an entire war happening. Because deep down, there's a very human desire. I want to be understood. But immediately after comes another thought. What if I'm bothering them? So the brain starts reviewing every word like it's diffusing an emotional bomb. And over time, this becomes exhausting because the person never feels like they can simply talk. Everything has to go through a ridiculous emotional quality control process. And slowly, this creates a very strange loneliness. You feel a lot, but almost nobody truly knows you. It's like trying to cross the ocean using tiny paper cups. And the craziest part, this behavior often looks like maturity, politeness, self-awareness. But underneath it, it's usually fear. So try this. Instead of writing 15 perfectly crafted paragraphs, send something simple. Hey, I'm not feeling great today. I just wanted to talk a little. Or maybe I'm overthinking this, but I wanted to tell you something. The goal is to stop waiting for the perfect message before allowing yourself to exist emotionally. Because the longer you wait for perfection, the more your brain learns that emotional expression is dangerous. And that detail connects directly to every other sign we're about to talk about. Sign 2. They joke when they're emotionally falling apart. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" And they answer, "Mentally collapsing, but we ball." Everybody laughs. Conversation continues. Nobody notices that it was basically a cry for help disguised as a meme. What people see: someone funny, charismatic, easygoing. What's actually happening: humor became emotional armor, because making people laugh feels safer than letting them see raw pain. So the brain creates a brilliant defense mechanism, turns suffering into entertainment. It's basically putting glitter on emotional damage. Externally, it looks charming. Internally, there's often a huge fear of becoming too much for other people, and this creates a weird internal conflict. They can talk about their pain as long as nobody realizes they're serious. So, how do you deal with this? If someone asks, "Are you okay?" instead of saying, "Haha, I'm losing my mind, but it's fine," try something like, "I've been a little overwhelmed today, but I'll be okay." Notice the difference? You don't need to reveal your entire tragic backstory in the frozen food aisle at Target. You just stop turning every emotion into a performance. Because emotionally, this works like a broken arm that became a joke for so long that nobody realizes it still hurts. And there's a very specific psychological reason why this happens. But hold on to that thought, because it'll make much more sense later. Sign 3. They struggle to cry in front of other people. If you can cry alone, but completely shut down emotionally around others, that doesn't necessarily mean you're cold. Sometimes it means your nervous system learned that vulnerability wasn't safe. Because some people grew up learning that crying led to criticism, shame, discomfort, or rejection. So eventually, the body started associating vulnerability with danger. And this shows up in very specific everyday moments. You feel yourself about to cry, and immediately you grab your phone, change the subject, make a joke, or pretend you're fine again. It's like your brain pulls an emotional emergency brake, almost like sneezing while trying not to sneeze. Your whole system fights itself automatically. And over time, this creates massive emotional buildup, because emotions that never find release usually find explosion. So let's break this into levels. Level 1. Simply notice the automatic urge to emotionally shut down without judging yourself. Level 2. If you feel emotional, try not to immediately escape the feeling. Don't instantly distract yourself. You don't need a dramatic movie scene breakdown. Just stop interrupting the emotion immediately. Level 3. Practice saying something small like, "Sorry, I think that actually affected me more than I expected." That sounds tiny, but for some people, that's basically emotional skydiving without a parachute. And the more you practice safe moments of vulnerability, the less your brain associates emotion with danger. Remember this part, because it's literally the key to the entire video. Sign 4. They apologize excessively. "Sorry for bothering you. Sorry for asking. Sorry for bringing this up. Sorry for breathing oxygen near your general location." The real desire usually isn't to apologize, it's to avoid rejection. So they try to emotionally soften themselves in advance, as if the brain believes, if I make myself smaller first, maybe nobody will hurt me later. The problem is that this affects everything: friendships, relationships, work, communication. The person slowly starts behaving like a guest in their own life, and every unnecessary apology reinforces the belief, my emotions are a problem. It's like placing a warning sign on your own emotional existence. So try this counterintuitive shift. Instead of sorry to bother you, say, when you have time, let me know. Instead of sorry for talking about this, say, I needed to vent a little. Small wording changes, huge psychological impact, because you stop teaching your brain that your existence is inconvenient. And maybe you're already noticing the pattern forming between all these behaviors, but we're still missing one very important piece. Sign 5. They feel uncomfortable when someone genuinely cares about them. Someone says, you can talk to me anytime, and immediately the person responds, no, it's fine. What people see? Independence. What's actually happening? Emotional discomfort. Because support without conditions feels unfamiliar to people who spent years emotionally defending themselves. Some people learned that care always came attached to something else: control, guilt, expectation, manipulation. So when someone offers genuine support, the brain becomes suspicious. What's the catch? And the internal conflict becomes really strange. They desperately want comfort, but also feel the urge to run away from it. So how do you deal with this? If someone says, you can count on me, instead of automatically rejecting it with, no, it's okay, try saying, thank you. That means a lot to me. That's it. Because receiving support is also an emotional skill. It's like using a muscle that's been emotionally asleep for years. And this connects directly to the next sign, which might be one of the quietest of all. Sign 6. They save screenshots, messages, and tiny emotional details. The other person texts, okay, and suddenly your brain opens a full FBI investigation. The period sounded aggressive. They took 23 minutes to respond. The tone felt weird. What if they're mad? What if I did something wrong? The original desire here is simple: emotional safety. But the behavior becomes hypervigilance, because some people learn to analyze tiny emotional signals in order to predict rejection, conflict, or mood shifts. So now the brain constantly scans for danger, like an unpaid emotional detective working overtime. The problem? It's exhausting. And most of the time, the brain fills in emotional blanks using fear. The person doesn't actually know what the other person feels, but creates an entire emotional movie inside their head anyway. So try this replacement. Instead of endlessly analyzing, ask yourself, do I have actual evidence this person is upset with me? Not feelings, not assumptions, evidence. Because emotional anxiety works like an app running in the background, draining your battery all day. And there's a very deep reason why the brain does this. And in a moment, everything is finally going to connect. Sign 7. They disappear after opening up emotionally. They finally vent, share something vulnerable, open up emotionally, and a few hours later, a massive wave of shame appears. Why did I say all that? I talked too much. They probably think I'm needy now. I should disappear. So they emotionally vanish. The initial behavior was vulnerability, but the mental reaction afterward becomes regret. And this creates a brutal cycle: vulnerability, shame, isolation. Over time, the brain learns opening up leads to emotional danger, and the accumulated effect is painful because the person wants connection but runs away right after the exact moments that could create connection. It's like dying of thirst while being scared of the glass of water. So try this counterintuitive approach. After opening up, don't disappear, even if you really want to. Send something simple like, thanks for listening yesterday. That tiny action interrupts the automatic shame cycle because you teach your brain that vulnerability doesn't automatically lead to rejection. And now we reach the final sign, the explosive one, literally. Sign 8. When they finally explode emotionally, everyone gets shocked. But you always seemed so calm. Exactly. Because nobody saw the emotional accumulation. If you suppress emotions for months, eventually every feeling becomes pressure, and then suddenly something tiny happens. A tone, a comment, a criticism, another okay with a period, and boom, the emotional reaction looks disproportionate. But emotionally, it didn't start there. It started months ago, maybe years ago. It's like a pipe leaking behind the walls. Everything looks normal until the ceiling collapses. So if you do this, practice expressing discomfort earlier. Level 1, notice discomfort while it's still small. Level 2, say something simple like, actually, that bothered me a little. Level 3, practice honest conversations before emotional collapse. Can I be honest about something? People who explode emotionally often never learned how to release emotions gradually. Everything becomes accumulation. And now we can finally reveal the psychological pattern behind all these signs. Now that you've seen all the signs, let's go back to the psychological pattern connecting all of them. In cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, there's a very important idea. Our beliefs shape how we think, feel, and behave. And there's one deeply hidden belief underneath all these behaviors. The belief is expressing pain was not safe. And once you look at every behavior through that lens, everything suddenly makes sense. And now comes the important part. How do you heal this belief? In CBT, one of the most powerful ways to change a deep belief isn't just thinking differently, it's experiencing something different. Because the brain learns far more through repeated experience than through logic alone. So healing usually starts very small, very small. Instead of automatically hiding that you're struggling, say something simple like, I've been feeling overwhelmed today. And then consciously notice nobody humiliated you, nobody rejected you, the world didn't collapse. These small emotional experiences slowly weaken the old belief, and little by little, the brain starts learning maybe it's safe to feel now. And that changes everything. Not instantly, but gradually. Because people who were trained to suffer quietly usually also need to slowly learn that they no longer have to survive that way. And maybe the strangest question is this: how much of your personality was actually just survival mode that stayed too long? So if you recognized yourself in this video, comment which sign hit you the hardest. And maybe, for the first time, instead of automatically hiding it, you simply allow yourself to be seen.